Good morning, you are watching A News. I'm Bakhtiar Asanov, and let's see the top stories. The White House confirms that Trump tariffs will go through as promised. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says that the EU is prepared to respond to US tariffs. Tensions between China and Taiwan escalate as China continues military drills near the island. US President Donald Trump is calling today Liberation Day. It follows the start of tax hikes, which he says are aimed at protecting American industries. Later, the White House is set to unveil a broader set of trade tariffs.
It's being called Liberation Day in the US as President Donald Trump's tariff hikes begin on the auto car industry amid trade war tensions. This industry is expected to be one of the hardest hit. Meanwhile, a 25% tariff on foreign vehicle imports is set to take effect on Thursday, followed by tariffs on auto parts beginning in early May. Additionally, Trump has announced a 25% tariff on imports from any country that purchases oil or gas from Venezuela from today. He says increasing the tariffs is central to his America First trade policy, designed to boost US manufacturing and reduce reliance on foreign goods. Economists warn it could lead to higher consumer prices, disrupted supply chains, and potential job losses. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says this is just the beginning.
April 2nd, 2025 will go down as one of the most important days in modern American history. Our country has been one of the most open economies in the world, and we have the consumer base hands down, the best consumer base. But too many foreign countries have their markets closed to our exports. This is fundamentally unfair.
Later, a broader package of trade tariffs is expected to be announced.
China, based on the fact
Trump has vowed to implement reciprocal tax hikes against countries that impose duties on US exports. Trump is scheduled to formally announce the new set of tax hikes later at 4 p.m. local time in the White House Rose Garden. However, officials have indicated that final decisions regarding the specifics and targets of these measures are still being determined.
The European Union is prepared to respond to potential US trade tariffs with strong countermeasures if necessary. That's according to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Her remarks come as trade tensions between the EU and the United States remain under close watch.
The European Union will be prepared to retaliate against US trade tariffs with strong countermeasures if necessary, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said. She stated in a speech that the focus is on a negotiated solution. Von der Leyen noted that the EU will do everything necessary to protect its interests.
Europe did not start this confrontation. We think it is wrong. But my message to you today is that we have everything we need to protect our people and our prosperity. We have the largest single market in the world. We have the strength to negotiate. We have the power to push back. And the people of Europe should know that together we will always promote and defend our interests and our values, and together we will always stand up for our Europe.
She mentioned the importance of dialogue, but made it clear that the EU would not hesitate to respond if required.
Our strategy builds on 3 pillars. First, we are open to negotiations. We will approach these negotiations from a position of strength. Europe holds a lot of cards, from trade to technology to the size of our market. But this strength is also built on our readiness to take firm countermeasures if necessary. All instruments are on the table.
The statement comes as trade discussions between the EU and the US continue, with both sides weighing their next steps.
Canada has stated that it will be very deliberate in taking countermeasures against the United States in response to what it considers unjustified actions by the U.S. administration. This statement was made by Prime Minister Mark Carney, who emphasized that Canada will not allow the U.S. to weaken or dominate the country. He plans to engage in negotiations with President Donald Trump after the election, while Canadian ministers will maintain regular communication with U.S. officials in the meantime. China has conducted military drills around Taiwan for a second day as tensions in the region continue to rise. State broadcaster CCTV showed footage of the People's Liberation Army's Eastern Theater Command preparing rocket launch vehicles while fighter jets, Navy ships and Coast Guard vessels took part. According to reports, the drills tested maritime and air strategic formations near Taiwan. It described them as a warning against separatist movements and a necessary step to protect national sovereignty. Taiwan condemned the exercise but says it hadn't observed any live fire. U.S. Attorney General Pamela Bondi has announced that the federal prosecutors will seek the death penalty for Luigi Mangione. He's the man accused of murdering United Health Group's Insurance Division Chief Executive Brian Thompson. The shocking killing took place outside a Midtown Manhattan hotel last December, sparking a nationwide manhunt. U.S. Attorney General Pamela Bondi has directed federal prosecutors to pursue the death penalty against 26-year-old Luigi Mangione, who is accused of murdering United Health Group's Insurance Division CEO Brian Thompson. Mangione has pleaded not guilty to New York State charges of murder as an act of terrorism and weapons offenses. Since New York doesn't have the death penalty for state charges, he could face life in prison without parole if convicted. In addition to the state charges, Mangione faces a separate federal indictment in Manhattan. He hasn't yet been asked to enter a plea in the federal case. It's in this case that Bondi has instructed prosecutors to push for the death penalty, a move one of Mangione's lawyers called barbaric. If Mangione is convicted in the federal trial, the jury would determine in a separate phase whether to recommend the death penalty. Any such recommendation must be unanimous, and the judge would then be required to impose it. Thompson was shot and killed outside a Midtown Manhattan hotel on December 4th of last year. The brazen attack and subsequent 5-day manhunt for Mangione captured the attention of Americans. Police officers in Altoona, Pennsylvania ultimately found Mangione in possession of a 9mm pistol with a silencer, clothing that matched the attire worn by Thompson's shooter in surveillance footage, and a notebook detailing plans to assassinate an insurance company CEO, according to court filings. Greece is grappling with intense rainfall causing widespread flooding and major disruptions across several regions. Roads have turned into rivers, vehicles have been stranded, and authorities are working tirelessly to manage the crisis.
Greece has been hit by intense rainfall, leading to significant damage across several regions, with floods disrupting daily life and stranding vehicles. According to Greece's state broadcaster ERT, the downpour initially struck the Cyclades Islands before spreading to central Macedonia, Halkidiki, Crete, Chios, and the Dodecanese Islands. The relentless rain has left entire areas flooded, disrupting daily life and causing extensive damage. Emergency teams are working tirelessly to manage the crisis, responding to distress calls and clearing roads. In the Dodecanese Islands, the Civil Protection Unit has issued emergency warnings via mobile alerts, urging residents to remain cautious until Wednesday evening due to the ongoing severe weather conditions. In the island of Poros, where roads turned into rivers, local authorities have banned travel on the road network. The heavy rain has triggered landslides, making movement hazardous. Additionally, floodwaters have swept away several cars in the Nau support area. Meanwhile, in Mykonos, vehicle movement has also been restricted due to rising water levels. Local authorities have received multiple requests for water removal from estates as residents struggle to cope with the inundation. On the island of Syros, a heavy hailstorm followed the downpour, though authorities report no major damage. In Halkidiki, the storm brought hailstones the size of hazelnuts, along with torrential rain, worsening the situation. Authorities remain on high alert as emergency services continue their response efforts. Meteorologists warn that more heavy rainfall could be on the way. Residents are urged to take all necessary precautions as the situation continues to develop.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan is set to visit Paris today, where he is scheduled to meet with French Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs Jean-Noël Barrot. According to sources from the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the talks will cover a broad agenda focusing on bilateral relations, Turkey-European Union ties, regional conflicts and global security issues. Economic cooperation is also expected to be a key topic, with Fidan set to discuss strengthening ties in trade, investment, energy and tourism. During the latest context, my colleague Orkan Amashov discussed the question of Turkey's growing influence in Central Asia, particularly through the lens of the Middle Corridor transportation project development and its impact on EU and US interests. Let's take a look.
Of course, I'm not a spokesman for the EU or the United States, but it would seem to me that both of those entities should welcome this, shall we say, expansionism of the influence of Turkey. You mentioned the historical, ethnical connection of their countries, the growing influence and increased activity of the OTS, the Organization of Turkic States. Given Turkey's position, they should be really the key sort of agent that can play a big role in strengthening the Middle Corridor. And I would think that the European Union and the United States would only welcome that. Of course, the attitude of European countries towards Turkey has been uneven. If you want to go back over the last 20 years, remember when Turkey was in ascension, talks about joining the EU, and then that was all shot down, didn't happen. But I don't think there's really a better way to sort of ramp up the development of the Middle Corridor than to cooperate very closely with Turkey and to recognize the strong role that they can and should play. That's my opinion.
Russia's court has received a request to remove the Taliban from its list of banned organizations. This follows a bill passed last year which paves the way for this potential shift in policy amid ongoing global debate over how to engage with the Taliban. Tamim Bahiz has more from Kabul in Afghanistan.
A Russian court has confirmed that it has received a request from the Prosecutor General's office to remove the Taliban from the country's list of banned organizations. The Taliban was first designated as a terrorist group in 2003 and has remained outlawed in Russia for over 2 decades. But change has been in the works. Late last year, Russia's lower house of parliament passed a bill clearing the way for Moscow to revoke the Taliban's designation as a terrorist organization. Unlike many other countries, Russia never shut down its embassy in Kabul. In fact, it swiftly established contact with the Taliban, with its ambassador meeting Taliban officials shortly after they seized power. Today, the international community remains deeply divided on how to engage with the Taliban. The group has now held power for 3 years without facing any significant internal or external opposition. Some Central Asian countries like Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan have already removed the Taliban from their list of terrorist organizations. However, Canada and Russia still classify the Taliban as a terrorist group. Meanwhile, the European Union and the United Nations have not formally designated the Taliban as terrorists, but continue to impose sanctions on them. This is Tamim Bahiz in Kabul for A News.
Georgia's ruling party, Georgian Dream, has introduced a series of amendments that could reshape the country's political and media environment. Our reporter Nini Nikolaishvili has more on that.
Georgia's ruling party, Georgian Dream, has introduced legislative amendments that could significantly impact country's political and media landscape. One key proposal would allow the Constitutional Court to ban any political party it deems identical to the one previously declared unconstitutional. Additionally, Georgian Dream is seeking to shorten the deadline for court's decisions on the constitutionality of parties' activities and the termination of mandates for deputies elected under that party. Under the proposed changes, the court must issue the ruling within 9 months and within just 14 days during elections periods. Supporters claim this will ensure timely decisions, while the critics argue that it could be used for fast-track political crackdown. Another amendment to the law on broadcasting extends content regulations and prohibits foreign funding for the television and radio stations. Georgian Dream says that this will strengthen media standards, while the critics argue and warns that it introduces mechanisms of censorship and financial pressure on independent media. Additionally, lawmakers have advanced Foreign Agent Registration Act, modeled after the US legislation. Proponents say it enhanced transparency, while the critic says that it reflects Russian restrictive laws and threatens civil society and press freedom. As these bills move through the parliament, they illustrate Georgia's complex political landscape. This is Nina Nikolashvili reporting from Tbilisi, News.
The demand and recognition for pomegranates grows daily, with Forbes suggesting that Azerbaijan should be the face of the global pomegranate boom.
Pomegranates, with their vibrant colours and nutrient-packed seeds, are gaining popularity in the health world. While they are considered an exotic fruit in the Western world, pomegranates have long been cherished in many cultures, particularly in Middle Eastern cuisines, and are beloved in countries like Turkey, India and Iran. For Azerbaijan, where the pomegranate is the national symbol, it stands out among other countries for its almost sacred approach to the fruit. A recent Forbes article suggests that Azerbaijan should be considered the face of the global pomegranate boom, highlighting the country not as the largest producer, but as the most intriguing, diverse and possibly the most delicious. The country grows over 200 varieties, including 60 indigenous ones across 9 climatic zones, supported by centuries of traditional knowledge and cultural reverence for the fruit. This heritage is driving success as the Made in Azerbaijan label gains global recognition. In January 2025, Azerbaijan exported 2,278 tons of pomegranates, valued at $2.14 million, according to the Ministry of Agriculture. The ministry reported a 33.3% increase in value and a 35.3% rise in volume compared to the previous year. Azerbaijan's advantage comes from its terroir, especially in the Goychay region, known for its unique climate and rich soil, making it famous for premium pomegranates. Since 2006, the Goychay Pomegranate Festival has celebrated the fruit, and in 2020 it was recognized by UNESCO as part of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. As global demand grows, projected to nearly double to $10.6 billion by 2033, countries with export capabilities are rushing to expand production. With climate change disrupts production in major regions, Azerbaijan's high-altitude, arid zones provide a stable environment for cultivating quality pomegranates. Leveraging this advantage, the country is not only increasing exports of fresh fruit, but also focusing on value-added products like extracts, juices and natural cosmetics.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned for more updates.